It's not Saturday. We're all together. I love that.
Hi.
In a new environment, perhaps.
Yes. It took me like 3 full weeks, but I finally set up. I have an office now.
Oh, wow.
Woo!
So I also now have enough bookshelves for my books. Don't have to have piles on the floor.
It's better than me right now. I actually might return a bunch of the books. I kind of, this is a total tangent, but just to kind of share in the sense of catching up somewhat. I had this period of really trying to get a bunch of like used books to intentionally collect, like start a small like library. And I don't regret it, but now it's also like I'm at that point of do I want to commit to having the physical books or not? Because I can still there's places I can like sell them back to, and I have to kind of make that choice soon. So I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm sure there'll be something to comment on ahead. But I respect the library efforts.
Yeah, my method is, well, sometimes when I can't find what I'm looking for on LibGen, but then sometimes I just like, it's quite random when I'm like, oh, I'm going to try to buy this book, this physical book. And then I go to like thriftbooks.com, and a couple other used bookstores. And if it's less than like $10, I'll buy it. So there's like, it's like totally random when I decide to look and what books I decide are worth buying. It's not like, oh, I'm actually really excited about this one, so I'm going to find it. It's quite random. But now it's going to become more frequent since I have space.
That's great. That's very similar to what I have been doing, just the in-person version of that here. This is the same price range and everything. That's exactly like my approach. So cool. I'm open to any other talks, but I did see they made a Notion page, which is great. So thank you for doing that. And I'm happy to kind of, have you lead this as much as you want to do. So feel free to go ahead with that.
Yeah, I just thought we could, mostly catch up, decide on a reading for the next meeting. I guess decide if we want to do every 2 weeks still or try to do every week. And then just talk about when we're picking the next reading, like if there's a next like theme. So because we started with something that was kind of like about the social aspect of technology. It's kind of all over the place, Weiner's book. We started with that, and then spent a lot of time on biology of cognition, which was definitely like counts as cybernetic. And then we talked about memory, but like through that, there have been a lot of other potential routes to go down. So, yeah, I didn't have anything else like in particular planned.
Okay.
So I guess what did I write down already?
So, what were you saying about the Notion page, Jesse?
I made one. I can copy it into this.
Yeah, let's look at that. Actually,
it's just the outline for the meeting, but Amanda set it up, so that's good.
Yeah. So, like, is there stuff in that Notion page, or do we have a Notion page where we have like some of our old notes or something we're accumulating?
I looked through the old note pages, and we have a stub for all of the readings that we've done. But that mission statement page, I can find that too. That's still pretty sparse.
Right.
So I don't think we need to turn that into anything super formal, but it could be a good platform for writing down thoughts about themes. In the Notion page, the template prompts project development updates. So one question I had was, are there any projects we want to develop for this group in particular?
All right. Yeah. And so you have glossaries and then ontology of cybernetics, so the ontology and the glossary, which
Yes,
is, yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
the glossaries are what we were talking about in cognition features, and as part of the methods project. So there's like the descriptive version and the prescriptive version. I thought as we move through more papers, we try to fill that in, just because that's the kind of thing where it's easier to do like as you're reading a paper than it would be to like do it like reflectively. I think just try to like look back and then develop it. So maybe as we keep reading papers, we try to fill out those glossaries.
Okay.
And then the ontology of cybernetics, that is similar, but specifically for cybernetics. Like, what are I don't know, what are the entities in cybernetics? What are the explanatory concepts? The main one would be like feedback. So we've talked about different types of feedback. So trying to fill that out.
Yeah.
Control systems as a metaphor.
Yeah.
Or control systems as a mechanism? No. Control systems being used more and more as kind of architectural inspiration in machine learning systems.
Yeah.
Which which I think is interesting, and again, really just I just got onto the notion, so I'll drop a link here, at least in terms of like just neurobiology of homeostasis, as I think the last paper we read was like anticipatory system, or right, this night lab at UCSF is focused on behavioral changes to bring physiological systems back to a set point.
Yeah.
For instance, right? And I don't know. So sometimes, like control systems are at least, I think, a little more clearly defined.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's
right
to say. I mean, again, I like the term cybernetics, right? But there's multiple generations of cybernetics, and so I think that adds to the confusion.
Yeah, it is pretty confusing because there's no good literature that kind of goes back over and then reviews all of that stuff in the context of with.
Well, as well as like there seems to be. I mean, I like the people who started cybernetics, but other disciplines seem to have made a more mature area of study with associated, textbooks and materials to study and applications in diverse areas like control systems. But I would be happy for us to look at both the kind of the 11 examples I think are usually good. I'm particularly interested in his examples where he brings in and tries to bring in some sort of mathematical mechanistic ways that like multi-scale issues that come from with the control systems, or kind of like the intersection of control systems and complexity.
Yeah.
Charlie's dog must be as big a fan of Levin as
aren't we all?
as that guy who I don't know, dissed him really bad as like being too computationally focused. I forgot his name, but the one we read the paper on, and then I had to tweet about. The one I had passionately was like, "Did you read this paper by Michael Levin?" And he was like, "Oh, he's such an academic fraud."
Yeah, like he was, way over the top there. What was his name? Begins with a Y.
Oh, he was Yogi. That's his like Johannes Yogi somebody. Levin and company were cited as his sort of like, oh, the people who are really wrong about computationally mixing like some things. And I mean, I kind of feel like in my personal how the world should be ruled is sort of like kind of like some elements of British Parliament where it's just normal to make fun of people, but like it's not like death threats in the way that American politics can be.
Yeah.
So like I'm okay with that, but also like I don't know. This is a tangent into I don't even use like my usage of Twitter, which I will still call it Twitter, is just I don't even know. I don't know. Like I don't know where that there's a whole discussion happening on social media and like what's going on with trying to use it for anything useful right now. But I'm happy to just not even talk about it. So yes, that was the person that we talked about. But it's really interesting. I'm glad we're having this meeting talking about these different sort of influences and paths to go because I've been thinking a little bit about that too and kind of like it was originally at the start of this meeting before we were going kind of where we are in this moment. I was going to kind of say, do we want to like dovetail back towards not dovetail, but do we want to kind of move towards some of the logiciel a caveat kind of stuff that we talked about, which was the John rating group a while ago, or not? Because that's a little bit more. I have a desire to go into a space that's sort of I don't want to say like modern synthetic attempts at mathematics outright, but like that's not necessarily the same thing as I think a lot of what we're talking about here is cybernetics or control systems or like these sort of regulatory theories. So I'm curious. I'm very open to either of those things being more centered, if that's what we want to do. But yeah.
So the logiciel stuff was kind of like the philosophy of mathematics or something like that. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was that the kinds of themes we were talking about there.
I got it secondhand, but it seemed like one of the main takeaways was that what we mean by computation is like can be a lot broader than how it's often used, and it's really dependent on an interpreter. Like it's something that's used as opposed to something that can exist by itself in a vacuum as some kind of set of pure truths. But I didn't even read it, so that's just what I remember as my impression.
Amanda, was that book? Is the subtitle of that book 6 Seminars on Computational Reasoning? Or did you, when you saw it, was it not even have that as a subtitle? I just found something else by A.A. Caveat that's logiciel 6 Seminars on Computational Reason, but I don't know if that's the same thing that we read.
I thought there was a subtitle. I think that's the same thing.
Maybe I don't remember. Yeah, I remember. I think we got into it a little bit.
It is okay. I found a lot Johann's YouTube videos about it, and it is the same book. Okay, I know this was the content, but I was like, I didn't remember the subtitle for some reason. Anyway, I'm just going to mention that.
I'd be interested. So towards the end of one of the last meetings, we were talking about this idea that I remember. So I started to write this down. The thesis of I think it was the naturalizing relevance realization paper, is basically that there's stuff that organisms do that can't be computational, and it offers reasons for that. And my feeling after that was like, why can't the things you're describing, like adaptability and like flexibility, why can't that be ultimately computational? Which is, and then we started talking about, I don't know if it was von Neumann who had like the other basically definition of computation, like an alternative to his like
the architecture.
More, but like, so there's like the von Neumann architecture, but then was it his own like alternative to that, or was it someone else? But we mentioned that there was like a completely different kind of paradigm of like what computation could be. And that in particular, and also just like that question in general, is something that I'd be interested in continuing with.
Yeah, there are different alternatives to von Neumann computation. Also, that people have tried to characterize things like adaptability and flexibility computationally, like especially in like evolutionary computation in those areas. So I don't, we could pull up some of that as well. That can be fairly technical, but it is, they're trying to figure out how to characterize these kind of open-ended systems in a way that isn't just saying, well, isn't in the typical machine learning way, I guess.
Oh, this isn't sharing.
We've also, of course, we were talking about physical computation as well, and the Corey Maley stuff. So that kind of fits into that from a more philosophical perspective, because, there's just different ways you can think of computation. Some of them are sort of the physical computation that we know from, more familiar with from like the real world. Some of it is more theoretical, and we can, kind of bring those to bear. And, I think everyone focuses on von Neumann computation because it's like if we have a computer in front of us, that's what we understand, right?
It's very, very much an extension of kind of the older ideas of you've got these separation between particular components of the computer, isn't it? I mean,
I'm not sure.
This is why in some of these alternative architectures you talk about like in memory computing and things like that.
Yeah, so
it's all these non-traditional, if you will, from our canonical computer. Well, or like certainly how our computer computer industry has commoditized the original kind of architecture.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, you can buy you can buy a non-canonical computer, but they're expensive. You can build one, but
yeah, and they're potentially very difficult to program.
Right, difficult to program.
Or they have all sorts of interesting. Yeah. Oh yeah, there's the one. I mean, I think he took the kind of the Turing girdle.
Yeah.
The end of the Wolfram. Sorry, it was really interesting discussion between Wolfram and Hoffman that I posted, like a 3-hour, back and forth, and the very end, he like Wolfram talks about talking to John Wheeler about his work. Like Wheeler was like 95 or something like that, and and of course it's all very computational. And he said, and apparently Wheeler said to him, you should really talk to him about this stuff. Is John von Neumann?
Yeah.
But he'd passed like many decades before. Is it called the Princeton architecture?
Oh, I guess it is because von Neumann was at Princeton.
Yeah. Okay, I hadn't seen that before.
So the John Wheeler stuff, yeah, that was from the It from Bit guy, who kind of thought about like, bits and sort of the modern way we think about computation, and how that links to like other systems, like living systems, and yeah.
I think that's what that's how Wheeler's name came up. Hoffman, like Wolfram pulled out like Hoffman's book from 30 years ago, and then Hoffman was just like, "Oh yeah, John Wheeler quoted it in his bit paper."
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. You see this comes up a lot in neuromorphic computing world.
Okay.
Is potentially one of those like better or somewhat better developed areas of different alternatives to the von Neumann architecture.
You're gonna say something, Amanda?
Yeah,
Yeah, so it seems like a fundamental part of the von Neumann architecture is that memory is like a storage unit. So I still couldn't find, I know we were talking about like a particular alternative to this, and I feel like I remember it being like von Neumann's own alternative, so I'll have to find that. But this is also interesting in relation to memory being a theme that we've touched on, like the metaphor for memory that seems to dominate like all talk of it is that it's the separate storage unit. So we read that Levin paper that challenged that by the experiments that showed that like the butterflies remember what happened to the caterpillars despite the dramatic metamorphosis. And I remember some of the commentary was like, oh, it was still kind of like, so where are the memories stored? Is it stored in the morphogenic field or whatever they kind of propose? So it was still really couched in this storage metaphor. So I'm still interested in thinking about what alternatives to that there could be. Like what does a truly 4E kind of version of memory look like? So looking at alternative forms of computation would be one way to do that. Like how do other types of computer architectures deal with memory?
Yeah, there's a Zurich computer science, computer engineering guy, and keeps seeing these talks on like in-memory computing. He's talking about something like this. I haven't found that yet, but I was just going to say sort of in this theme, the Steve Brunton talk where it's like reinforcement learning is where what is it like machine learning meets control systems.
What is that? Like what?
Sorry, 1 second. Sorry, I was just thinking about the, again, like controls, I mean, I guess the point being that like some of the work that we call cybernetics can also be seen as specific forms of things that we actually see are more developed in robotic control.
Okay.
And that's certainly his example in his reinforcement learning talks that mention control theory. It's like reinforcement learning is machine learning of control theory.
Yeah.
which then relates it to, like all the kind of policy learning, again, like, robotic control theory work that is, of course, very popular right now, because there's been this, resurgent interest in reinforcement learning.
Right.
And I think I posted this too, that Adam Safran is going to be talking about his generalization of SLAM.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
And yeah, was wondering what, how would that be a good, I mean, it certainly looks like a good example of kind of a neuro AI, an example of neuro AI. I'd love other people's opinion of it as a its appropriateness here.
Well, yeah, it definitely takes a metaphor of kind of like, taking into account embodiment. So you're taking into account the space around the agent. You have sensing. You have processing. You're kind of building a framework for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting idea too. Some things about sort of cellular sensing and control that aren't as, like, unless you get into an implementation, you might not think about, but just like, how is calibration done? How is, like, some of those questions that come up in SLAM would be interesting even beyond his entorhinal hippocampal example. I think you could generalize even further.
Yeah.
and anyway, it certainly comes up in some of this neurobiology of homeostasis.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess we've come up with a bunch of stuff now. So we've got so I guess the next question is, like, what do we want to do going forward? Like, are there things we want to do in terms of well, not just readings, but like papers or other kinds of activities?
Did you want to talk about this page, Amanda, or keep it on the mission one that I think there's an older one we used together or something, but yeah.
Oh, this is just what I mentioned that we like kind of started this. So yeah, that's not a bad summary. I'd forgotten about the Boros paper.
Yeah.
The non-dual theorizing. Yeah, I'm still pretty interested in that. Like, I think that when we're talking about like alternative forms of computation and like the fundamental concepts in cybernetics, I think it counts as this kind of theorizing, because we're trying to talk about entities that are like general enough to be describable like third personally and maybe like first personally. In that paper, that Voros's paper that explains Varela's writing on the topic, like math is one example of what counts as this non-dual theorizing. So that's just like, yeah, a point in favor in talking about the kind of philosophy of computation stuff. And I like that paper as like contextualization of it. It's like, why do you care about stuff at this like so abstract level? And the answer is like, if we're looking for entities that are observable first personally and third personally, then this is maybe one way to look for them.
Yeah. So we have general goals, non-dual theorizing, formalization of terms across disciplines, and then memory and early biological cybernetics, which we just kind of talked about. We had the different readings. Outputs, something in memory-inspired early biocybernetics. That's focus 1. And then what's focus 2?
Well, that would be like, that's what we could decide right now. If we want to like pick another offshoot from Weiner or from anything that we've talked about, like I'm not opposed to like kind of wrapping up our focus number 1 and moving on to something else.
Yeah. So how would you describe focus number 2? If it would be Weiner, then how does that fit into everything else we've been doing? Like, because that's sort of the history of technology, the philosophy of technology. There's cybernetics. So what do you think would be the thing to take away from Weiner?
I think there's like any number of things. Like that's something we'd have to decide, because I think like memory was an offshoot of that.
Yeah.
There's only a couple paragraphs where he talked about it, but what he said was really provocative, and we basically found papers that proved him wrong. I'd have to flip back through the book to see if there's anything that would be worth being like a second theme. I'm sure there'd be something.
Yeah. So yeah.
Or move on to like philosophy of computation stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah, actually that would be interesting. So the focus 2, I guess, would be kind of like, if we want to talk about Weiner in like a general sense, focus 2 would be like maybe the history of maybe cybernetics, or philosophy of computation. And then there's a memory component, although I'd put that under focus 1. You can draw distinctions between what, say, Weiner was talking about with memory, and then some of the other things people have been doing with memory. And we've seen a number of those. But yeah, I don't know, Jesse, if focus 2 is maybe more about maybe the history of cybernetics, or the philosophy of computation, or philosophy of computation maybe should be a third focus. Because we have also we talked about the Maturana stuff. So the Maturana stuff would fall maybe in focus 2. Well, that's under focus 1, but there's a lot of stuff there too. So.
Oh yeah,
hard border.
Yeah. Research thrusts. Yeah, I mean all of those things. I'm certainly not trying to draw lines at the moment. But yeah, yes to all of that. I don't have anything concrete to say at the moment, so I'll wait.
All right. Let's see. What do you think about this, Morgan?
Yeah, it's. I'm just trying to think of some examples of focus 2, or.
I think also like a question in my mind is a bit like, I think like in terms of like what are we doing, just to I think this is obvious, but I'm just restating it. These are just sort of loose directional things. So, like this isn't necessarily what our goal is, to make a paper on focus 1 and focus 2 and focus 3 in 1 year's time. Like we don't have anything like that, right? Like this is very just, there isn't like some specific deliverable or conference or topic we're aiming for at this time that I haven't like, right? Like we're kind of just thinking about like where to go in terms of the sort of what's next in terms of our current way of approaching the stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like in practice, when we just like pick a stream of papers, like these themes emerge, but this is a chance to like choose them ahead of time,
Right.
and like maybe wrap them up and have like discrete chunks of like discrete focuses.
Hmm.
But if we don't do this, I think, obviously these themes emerge on their own.
Yes. I definitely, I guess I'll put like, uh, I don't know, not a vote, but like something about philosophy of computation. There's, I don't, not really, not as in more or less, but definitely like philosophy of computation as a lens, I think is interesting to consider. And sort of like one of the more, I think this is actually, whoa, I'm remembering something I've been saying a lot, I think in one of either this group or one of the past groups. That thing about when I was reading some like introductory thing for one of the courses I was taking about how computation and its relationship to computational mediums and the nature of like dealing with the computational mediums and how that creates data by default. It's quite interesting actually, just something that's on my mind a lot after my data ethics course and sort of the nature of interacting with these mediums at almost a signing off on level of that's very different. I don't want to get into that right now, but there's to kind of recenter on this focus talk, philosophy of computation, and also, I mean, even just the relationship between that and cybernetics, aka regulatory theories. Like I'm trying to think of the whole, like the things that are attempting to describe, all of those various spaces. So so sort of like computation, these theories about regulation and memory uh, are sort of all make sense to me as sort of there's a coherent something there. I don't really know what it is, but there's something that sticks at least for me that way.
All right. Yeah, I think there is too, but yeah, we have to kind of sort that out. So we have focus 1, focus 2, and then yeah, let's finish focus 2, I guess.
Again, I don't know if this is just a recency effect, but I thought it was interesting in the conversation. Obviously, Wolfram is pretty much the epitome of computationalist. The one area where I think they needed some another 3 hours was really about what is Gödel, what is Gödel's incompleteness all about?
Oh yeah.
as that what are the lessons to be learned there? I mean, I think, well, and certainly, the proof is very much about, is about a kind of a computing,
right.
It's using a computer thought experiment, right? And anyway, I thought that was interesting, and would that fall under philosophy of computation?
Yeah, it would.
And I certainly like it in terms of just all the recent work in formalization of mathematics, because I think there's in a sense, there's like these people are all doing a modern version of Whitehead and Russell.
Yeah.
And one of them even, or it was interesting in some of those recent Hausdorff talks that like, I guess there was an early Newell program in the 50s where they fed in like the beginning of Principia Mathematica to. Anyway, there was some attempt to try and get a program to redo the Whitehead and Russell.
Okay. So it's kind of like a lot of the proof, like I think we talked in the Saturday meeting about proof automation, and then people are trying to do hypothesis generation now. With
well, I mean that, that would even be like at what point can you make these systems kind of creative and but the certainly the Hoffman kept on trying to get at, like, there are truths that are unprovable,
right?
And to him, I don't know if that's getting too far away from.
Well, I think that's a little far afield, but I think we can learn, like, because we talked of course, in the stuff with relevance realization about things being inherently non-computable, or things in nature being non-computable, and they propose this sort of closure, and then that's like, it's sort of like has a lot to do with open systems, open-ended systems.
Right.
So there's some theme there that's like, I don't know what it is exactly, and that's the part of the problem. We're getting into all these things, and they're really interesting, and it's like getting your hands around a theme that hasn't really been defined well, because people are coming at it from different angles, and it's like you have all these things, and it's like, what is the thing that kind of unites everything? How do we unify this? Unified theories are really hard to kind of get your head around.
Just let's not forget the draft that you had sent around too.
I totally forgot about that.
Because these are totally relevant to the control. Certainly machine learning. Control.
So one of the things, I think we've kind of come up with is that there are a lot of connections between sort of control and cybernetics, but also with modern machine learning. And the draft that is the current draft of that paper is in the Cybernetics channel. So I encourage people to read through it and kind of give some comments. And so, it's kind of at the page limit of what they're asking for. So,
it is already.
Well, but there's going to be a lot of editing probably, because it's like they give you 8,500 words, which isn't a lot, as it turns out, because it's like there's a lot of territory that we proposed. We kind of had our outline, and I fleshed it out, and it's just kind of like, because it's, you could write, and it probably deserves maybe 15,000 words, but we don't have that. So, we have to, but I think, like, one of the things I was thinking about with this paper is that there are a lot of maybe spin-off papers from what's going on. And, one of the spin-off papers, is this idea of, like, maybe control theory and cybernetics, the classic cybernetics, and then maybe, something like a machine learning angle, because that's kind of a thing, that theme that's been in that literature. There are also other, like, philosophical issues that you couldn't really put in, because you can't unpack a philosophical issue, like, when you're also doing other things. So I think, like, there are a lot of issues with respect to feedback and control that are really, maybe deserving of their own paper, or we could write like 5,000 or 6,000 words or more on just that one thing, and just especially with respect to some of the other stuff we've been laying out here. So is there like something that we can learn from? Well, when we talk about closed loop feedback, is that something that what's so special about that? Or open loop feedback or whatever. So originally, I know I've talked about Rob Stone.
This is it. Okay. I don't know the titles. I was just gonna ask. Oh, is there anything that was? What's in the channel is a Word document, and I was like, oh, did we ever put that as a Google document? But it appears to be
Oh,
blank.
it's
Which I'm
blank.
not
Well, I mean, I think I put a Word document in there because, but I don't know if maybe it's the. I don't know how it linked it in.
I'll share this in a second. Let's close this. Okay. Ooh. This isn't quite right, is it? What are you seeing? I'm not seeing anything. You're not seeing me.
I'm not seeing any screen or anything.
Weird. Okay. Oh, I hit the wrong button.
Oh.
I think. I don't know. Maybe I didn't.
So, anyways, I was
Sure.
gonna, yeah.
So
I was-
there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I had said, if you remember, I've talked about Rob Stone. So Rob Stone and I discussed doing like a reanalysis of the Evergood regulator theorem at one time. And it wasn't this at all, but it was like this idea that, just go through the theorem and just like see where we are with it today. And this is kind of, it's not at all the same thing, I promise you, but it does kind of hit on this thing. So this is this isn't the paper, this isn't the draft, this is just the abstract. But yeah, so I mean, we're going through this, we're kind of addressing things in machine learning, but there's a lot to say about the Evergood regulator theorem, I think, well beyond this paper. There are some themes that are kind of picked up in the draft and you can't really develop it all, but that's something that we can develop in other papers.
Yeah, this is the abstract, it seems.
Yeah.
I might actually make this slowly.
So actually, if you go into the Slack channel,
Yeah,
yeah,
the real one's there.
well, it's the latest version. It's not like the abstract. It's in Cybernetics, not in RG.
Yeah, I know.
There we go. There. You go up. There it is, right there. So yeah, that is a Word document, I think.
Yeah. Woo! I have this cool dark screen.
Yeah, you do have dark mode, so that's good.
I'll just leave it like that for now. I'm not gonna fuss with it. Yeah, okay. This is I don't know if we want to go to this right now, but
I mean, yeah, we could probably do this like another time when we can go through a bit more.
maybe that's what we do next time. Why don't we go through this paper like next time? Like just like I don't know.
Yeah,
At some point, I'd like to just go through this paper.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that works.
I know we're 10 minutes or so. Okay, maybe that's what we do next week or whenever we meet again or in a Saturday.
Yeah.
That'd be a great idea.
Yeah.
I know it's the kind of thing I would like to go through very slowly, and I don't know. It's like, you know what I mean? Like we could probably spend a really long time on it, but also I don't know if we'd rather do it in a meeting such as this or Saturday or try to blend it somehow if we know it's going to take multiple passes. Or thoughts on that?
I mean, just kind of going through it as a, I mean, we can go through different parts of it. I guess, we'll probably unpack some part and say this is, maybe the introduction, and then it really depends on how long it takes. We've done this with papers where we go through them and it takes like 6 sessions, but that's productive, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm starting to go through this next week since we took such a long break from this group, and since this is kind of maybe a secondary to the reading group function, I can do it next week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. And I think also thinking a bit about I mean, we can try to formalize this a little bit more in terms of these things too. I'm not really sure where we left off with this discussion, or if it's just something to sort of bring up next time.
I think we can definitely call focus number 2 like philosophy of computation, and then we just have to work out like, what specific aspects of that we want to think about. I still feel preoccupied with the digital versus analog.
I think that's I think that's like a primordial axiom, like some prime directive kind of thing. Like that's I'm very happy to myself to keep that around.
And we also now have that basis of the physical computation like series that happened on Saturdays. And there's a blog post with all that, right? Like it was.
Yeah. There's we do have one on their Medium. If you go to, it's several posts in, but it's physical computation. That's what it's called.
Yeah, so we could build off of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Next time, go through the EDRT world model paper, think about mission state. Okay. Anything else? Get that pepper. Anything else we want to put on the list? I think this is a nice wrapping up, or inverse wrapping up, unpacking of things again to gather ourselves. Gathering our party of ideas before venturing forth. Okay. That's it. That's all I got. I don't know if you want to say anything else. Oh, we have a few more minutes left, I thought. Excuse me. I don't know. I won't go into wrap up mode yet.
So, okay, next time we're going to do the paper, the one you have up there. And then, I'll probably prepare something for that, or we'll just read it and we can make comments or whatever.
Yeah, I'd be good. I've read various. I don't know what's happened since the last time that I looked at it, so I'm very hesitant to say, oh, I know exactly everything in it anymore.
Yeah.
I imagine not a lot's changed, but I don't know.
Yeah.
This is let me put it this way. This is the version. Is this the latest version? Because this was like posted in like May 20 something.
Oh, probably not. No.
Okay. Yeah, if there's a new one, maybe put it in the Slack and I'll try to popularize it.
Yeah, I did some more work on some of the model analysis in that. But that's but that I can update that, so.
Okay. That's good. But yeah, it's fun to think about. It's fun to think about this in the. It's been fun to think about this because I think as a little bit of a teaser, I suppose, I'm committed. One of my goals this summer is writing a lot of things out that have been partially written. And the first in that series is sort of a motivational piece for other things I want to do. But essentially, I don't know if I can easily preview it here. This is it's a complete draft, but I don't like the title and some of the headings. But it's here, and I don't like the format of this blog. It's whatever, but and the title is very long, and that's fine for now. But it's basically about novel vantage points and the challenge of transmitting and translating communications from these points, these new vantage points. And it's not really. It's more about doing the work of that, and not necessarily. I'm not proposing a theory. I'm not suggesting anything at this time. But it's this. it's something that I wanted to write first, just to talk about what is it like when you're trying to do this work of sort of building this, almost like, I'm using one of the analogies that came to mind is like when you're trying to like in terms of space flight, you sort of have to pick a destination that you want to go, which requires picking it out first and then building the means by which you can go to that destination, the launch pad, all the energy, all the effort to go from Earth to that pad, to that space in, extraterrestrially. And then when you're from that space, where and how do you communicate back? When there's many things that apply to everything we've been talking about here. The introduction, the introduction in the background of the blog post says, I know a lot of people don't know what I've been up to and aren't aware of all the different conversations happening in our Little Research Education Lab and other things I've been doing. It's like kind of give a very general like context for what's happening. But
can we go back to the post? I'm just curious. It looks fascinating. Yeah. So this is the scaffolding to construct a novel vantage point. So what's a non-diagetic exogenous space?
It's something that is relatively disconnected from other spaces. Is maybe the easiest way to say it. Like I'm motivated by the sense of how do you pick it's sort of this dilemma between taking from existing whatever theory or ideas and trying to go somewhere else. Sort of an explore, exploit, levee walk kind of way, just taking a big leap somewhere else. But also there's these aspects that are sort of connecting a circuit. There's aspects of feedback. There's aspects of, all these things that are at play. But it's really just, this post is specifically about the experience and the education and the pedagogy and the enabling people to try to do these things. Like maybe a simpler, crude way to say it is, how do you, really try to take a very non-standard approach to something and try to bring it back into either mainstream or at least preserve the use of being at that vantage point, and trying to take the insight from that vantage point and develop it, and understanding, okay, maybe it has its own limitations, maybe it's like the perfect vantage point to have, but it's, what do you do? How do you do that? And that's what has been this is sort of the draft is complete. I don't like the title, but the title is the truest way that it feels to me right now. So this is not it's a preview of a thing that I will eventually share and talk more about. But it fits with what we're saying in a sense. A lot of this work we're doing over here, we were saying, like a lot of this is sort of, we're in these interdisciplinary spaces that don't have great language or don't have defined things and other different viewpoints. And it's sort of kind of what in my language we're trying to do is like, we're trying to pick a vantage point where all this stuff makes sense, or where all this stuff has some coherence, and then communicate from that vantage point, which is really hard to do. It's not trivial. Maybe it can't even happen sometimes, but it's just, what is it like to endeavor to do that? I think that's implicitly something we're trying to do. Like there maybe is a vantage point where all of this makes a lot of great sense, but the language, the infrastructure, the models, the artifacts around that don't exist yet. So it's kind of like that. That's the best of the preview I can give at this time.
Okay. Well, that sounds great. Yeah, I get what you mean, and it's like very, very much a metaphor. Do you have if you go through, how long is it? It's 21 minutes long, apparently. So it's a pretty long post.
It's a blog post, but it's like over 10 pages.
Okay.
So
but
it's not super rigorous.
If you go through it, like how dense is the language in it? Like
medium. Like it's
okay.
Yeah.
Do you have like figures or like diagrams to show this? Like
I don't have a figure or a diagram made yet. I have a picture that I'm going to reference. That's sort of a picture. I don't have it in the post yet, but
Okay.
This is a reference point. This picture, like this vantage point, where you can clearly see the boundary between Earth and the moon,
Yeah.
the Earth and the atmosphere, and also the moon, and saying how this particular point of view has, in one sense, been there as long as the Earth and moon has existed, but actually being able to physically see from this point of view could be imagined for a very long time, but only existed after a lot of development for certain technologies and other things that happened where it could physically be realized that, okay, now you have a picture. Hopefully my wonderful picture analogy came through somewhat. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I was kind of hoping you could scroll through it, but that's okay. So it's on your
No,
blog
not
now.
today, not ready yet. It's
Okay.
not happening today, but soon.
All right, that's fine. Yeah, that's good. So yeah, we have anything else? I think we're at the top of our hour. We're a little
Yes.
past.
Yeah. Anything else before we go? Sorry, I didn't mean to open up the big can of worms, but the point was saying, like, I think there's something to I'm going through this notion, like you can see it, but you can't. But like, I think it's cool to think about these the focuses we're getting at, like, and thinking of, sharing something that's been on my mind about that. But that's it for me. Anything else before we go?
No, I
So,
think we're okay. Yeah, so next time we'll do the paper and we'll go through it. And I'll send out like the latest version so we can look through it. And we'll just do like, I don't know how far we want to get into it, go through kind of, but it'll, you know,
It'll be good. I'm looking forward to that very much.
For sure.
See everybody again here. Like, it's been a while, and I know I haven't been available for the other groups. So hopefully next week. I'm not 100% sure, but definitely when we get, like, if not next week, the next, depending on like some holiday and other things. But I'm looking forward to the regular meetings again very much. So thank you for being here for that.
yeah, it's next week, 4th of July, actually, on Thursday.
Oh, well,
I believe so.
maybe not.
Okay.
Maybe we'll do the following week then.
Yeah, Thursday is the 4th.
Yeah.
I spoke too soon about being able to do that.
Okay.
Anticipation is there.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have any limits here, but I'm sure people have things they want to do. So,
I'll be traveling.
yeah.
All right, I'll say goodbye. But thanks again, everybody, and looking forward to next time.
All right.
Yeah.
See you next time. Thanks.
Bye.
Take care.